All right, sorry about that. We are ready to go. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the ABMA's Behaviour Month. We are nearly towards the end of October. I hope you've all been enjoying everything that ABMA has offered during this month, especially what we're going to have today. Thank you for joining us on today, which is Fun Day Sunday. So no matter what time it is around the world, I think we're all still in Fun Day Sunday, so thank you for joining us. We have Peter Giljam talking to us about solving group challenges or solving the group challenge, and I'll talk a little bit more about Peter before he joins us in a moment. And I'm Ellie. I'm the Welfare and Training and Enrichment Coordinator at Jerusalem Zoo, so I'm here to help you out today. So if anyone has any questions, you can throw some things into the chat. You can also raise your hand. We also have a Q&A function for you as well. Now, this webinar is hosted by Zoom, so hopefully you're all familiar with Zoom by now. Can everyone raise their hand? Let me see if I can see you raising your hands, just so I can check that everyone's actually listening and can hear me, that there's no problems. Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. I've heard all about this raise the hand function, but to see it in action is another thing. Thank you so much. Glad to hear that we're all on the right track. So if you do need anything throughout the webinar, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat or the Q&A, or you can just raise your hand as well. And that's just some of the interactive features we'll be using with Zoom today. We are recording this webinar. So for those of you that, or if you know anyone that couldn't make it, we will be recording it. And as soon as we can, we will be uploading it to our Facebook and YouTube page. So look out for that. It'll be under today's date, probably in the comments, but we'll also link to it in our YouTube channel. So feel free to join our YouTube channel and you can get any updates with links that we do post with video recordings. Quickly, a few other points before I introduce Peter, who probably doesn't need any introduction to most of you, I'm sure. But if you're not yet an ABMA member, there is $5 off all membership for Behaviour Month in October. So I suggest that you jump on board and join now. There's a lot of membership opportunities, especially for October, including the entire NEI Tech Talk library for free for October, which is an amazing, amazing resource. So if you're not yet a member, jump on board. After this, we will also be having a members-only Q&A. So for all you members, you should have received an email with the link. And if you're not yet a member, sign up now and be part of that Q&A that we're going to have after this presentation, which will be great. Also, a few more things coming up this month for ABMA Behaviour Month. Please check in to our Facebook page. We update it all the time about what's up and coming. But we have another great presentation coming up towards the end of the week with San Diego Zoo and their enriched experiences. And we also have Ken Ramirez giving a presentation amongst lots of other information that's out there for free. So please don't hesitate to jump on board to Facebook and check out what's going on. So before we get started, I would like to actually introduce Peter. So now, I'm sure if I had to ask everyone to raise their hands who knows Peter, I'm sure all those hands would be raised. But a little summary about Peter and who's talking to you today. And I did promise him a little fun adventure twist at the end. That wasn't part of the bio he gave me, so I know he's holding on for that. So Peter grew up in the Netherlands and he was always curious about the natural world. He completed 2 internships and then landed his first job at Owen Zoo. I have no idea if I pronounced that right, but I've been practicing all week. In 2005, working with Californian sea lions. He then continued his animal training journey from working with walruses, bottlenose dolphins in Canada to training killer whales in Tenerife. Now, after a brief stint working with killer whales in France, he relocated to Sweden to work as a senior marine mammal trainer at Kolmården Wildlife Park, where he has also worked as the animal training coordinator there. Now, we all know Peter as the creator of Zoo Spenceable, and he delivers thought-provoking presentations and workshops about training strategies and systems applicable to all species. He also is really, really encouraging, as we all know, to animal professionals and encourages them to think outside the zoo. Peter is a passionate animal training and behaviour consultant. He is really proficient in operant conditioning methodology. And through his teachings, you are definitely bound to feel motivated and inspired to take on your next training project challenge. So feel free to be in touch with Peter with any help that you do need. He's really great at giving help. So something that not a lot of you would know about Peter, he actually visited Australia on behalf of the ASZK animal training community a few years ago, where I got to meet him. And I did discover that he has a very weird love of all things techno music. So I'm not even sure if we call it music. There are no words to these songs, but maybe Peter later on will be able to give us a demonstration of his fabulous techno dancing. And he also loves long walks on the beach. Now, you won't find this in any biography anywhere because that was what I added to it. But Peter, I did promise you something special. So hopefully we get to enjoy a bit of your little weird techno trance music later on. But it is my pleasure to welcome Peter on behalf of the ABMA's Behaviour Month and Fun Day Sunday to talk about solving the group challenge. So Peter, are you there?
That was good.
Like that?
Yes.
I think you need to add it to your bio, Peter.
And I will.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to sign out, let you share your screen, and you can get started.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. There we go. All right, solving the group challenge. It's to start with. It's quite a topic that I'm trying to figure out in many zoological facilities around the world I'm helping, because, as you know, there's never enough people and there are always too many animals. So same thing at the place that I worked at or that I'm consulting at, it's the same challenge everywhere. And that's where, you know, we at Suspenso try to really find creative ways to give every animal a chance to be part in our training program, and not that one animal that already comes or that one animal that needs most care. We always think, but you know, everybody has to come. Everybody has to have a chance to participate in a training session, to excel in their own welfare. So, therefore, this presentation is it's very much about, you don't have enough people, you have too many animals. What are creative ways to solve these things, and what to think about from the start? Because, you know, many questions that I get is, but where do I start? What am I going to do? And there's actually just one specific, well, there's a couple, I can't say one specific answer. There's a couple answers to that question. I hope I'm going to kind of solve them a little bit for you. I have a couple examples of animals that I had the pleasure to work with, where we had to solve the group challenge due to specific reasons, which I will talk about too. So yeah, so at first, thank you for this fantastic introduction, Ali. Yeah, I'm back in the Netherlands right now. I'm doing a lot of consulting and stuff. I'm going to Norway very soon, where I'm also going to help with the group challenge, because they have, believe it or not, maximum 4 zookeepers for 100 animals at the moment. So they need quite some help, and that's where we really apply these strategies all the time. That's where we see that the zookeepers who never really trained animals in their life before directly have to start with a lot of animals at the same time. That's very challenging, but slowly, step by step, we are reaching that goal very nicely with the same strategies that I'm going to talk with you guys about. Now, one of the first things is, and I find it a very interesting topic, because whenever I talk with any zookeepers or any facilities around, I call them, most of them, different cultures, because you have the marine mammal culture, you have the elephant culture, you have the bird of prey culture, you have they all have different ways of naming things, different ways of training. Well, it's all just the same behavioral science, you'd say. So I'm a very big fan of saying, you know, everybody, we just talk the same language, the same behavior science. That's how we work. So if you work with a dolphin, elephant, or bird, it does not matter. It's explainable in that science. So, which is why I get to this point. Dominance or resource guarding, and I hope I wrote it right. English is my second language, so sometimes you might see some mistakes in my spelling, but sorry for that. Anyway, so dominance or resource guarding, the reason I put this in is very much because every time I am at the place, one of the first talks I have is about their animals. And they will always say, that's the dominant one, and that's fighting that one, and that is this, and that is that. It's like, okay, so one of the first things I'm going to do is thinking about, is it really dominance or is it resource guarding? 9 out of 10 times, well, you know what? I believe 10 out of 10 times it's resource guarding. With resource guarding, we can do something. With dominance, we can't, because dominance is such a gray area. It's so big. So many behaviors are happening within dominance itself that we as trainers, we can't do anything with this. What we can do something with is resource guarding, because there's an animal protecting a resource from others to have. And that can be a lot of different things. Now, the focus on dominance will not help you to solve your challenges. I believe very much in this. Now, working with the group, we always have to figure out why the animals challenge one another. So what you see is, if you work with the group, there's always some conflicts here and there. The question is, for what and why do these animals have these conflicts? Now, most likely there's an important resource for the individuals and their environment, okay? So we have to look for behavior we can reinforce. If you know what the resource is, you can now teach them to share. If you can teach them to share, you all of a sudden have a more calm group. But you first have to know what is that resource that they are having these discussions about with one another, instead of focusing on, he's a dominant one. Yeah, nice. But that's not explainable in behavior very much, because there's 1,000 behaviors that an animal shows which might fall back into potential dominance. So that's why I don't want to, I want to skip that word completely, and I try to use resource guarding. Resources can be anything, including yourself. And this is the interesting part, because let's first talk about some small things that you can see in a habitat where the animals are in. You have sleeping spots, which animals have challenges about. Feeding areas, they become important because it's a feeding area. It's always the same spot, always the same place. There's only specific animals that can go there. The other ones will be chased away. The chasing happens because of the other animals wanted to have it more than the others. Sharing issues. Breeding female, breeding male. It's also a resource. Enrichment device can be a resource. That's why I always say, try to put more than animals devices in the exhibit, or at least have areas where animals can actually go to, so everybody has a chance to work with the enrichment. A playmate can also be a resource, but you can be a resource as well. And this is actually, I love training with positive reinforcement, as you might know, but it's also a problem. And the problem is this: when a specific reinforcer is only available from you, this happens very often. So you all of a sudden become a resource, because only from you there are these nice grapes. So you all of a sudden become extremely important for these individuals, because they never get grapes in their diet. They never get grapes in their enrichment device, only when you train. Now imagine that grape is the holy grail of reinforcement for these animals. You become all of a sudden a resource. When one animal is trained more often than others, you become a resource to that animal that is trained more often. I've helped out a lady with 4 horses, and this horse needed to have its oral medication, and she never was trained to get this. So she's done a very good job. In about 2 weeks' time, she got somewhere. But the problem now was she was reinforcing this horse so much that every time she showed up, this horse started to chase the rest away to first come to the trainer itself. And every time the horses came closer, the horse in question chased the other ones away again. So the trainer became a super important resource to this specific animal, due to the fact that that was the only one that she was focusing on, due to the problem that this horse had. One animal is reinforced more than others. If you give an animal continuously a lot of reinforcement in comparison to others, all of a sudden this animals as well, you become a bigger resource than anything else for these animals. The question here is obviously, is there a solution? Well, there's basically, if you ask me, just one specific solution, and that is cooperative feeding. Now, all animals should be eligible for a welfare increase. That's my belief. So, and therefore, especially when I worked in Sweden, one of the first things I said to the zookeepers, especially with the giraffes, which you might have seen the video, a giraffe doing the X-ray, which we trained with one of them. And the thing was is that this animal was trained already very well, that they already had a good foundation set, they already had everything, but there were like 7 or 8 others who would not be even comfortable with the trainer. So I was like, you know what, everybody, we're going to stop everything. You're not going to train the big male anymore, nothing. We're going to focus on all. We're going to train everybody or nothing, because all animals should be eligible for a welfare increase, not just one. That's the thing. Cooperative feeding works like this, and this is the first thing I apply right away. I don't add in a bridge stimulus. I do not add in a target. I do not add in anything else. I'm just adding in cooperative feeding. So I'm teaching the animals right away, we have to share this source. We have to share together. That's what we're going to do. If we have this, slowly more individuals come because they become confident. And as a trainer, you have to pay extremely a lot of attention. Now, there's, you might say to me now, Peter, well, how would that look like then? You know, I learned from actually at the Australian training conference where I was, I think it was 2018. I learned a valuable lesson. And that was actually from Walter Stellard. And of course, I've been thinking about this before, but how he placed it, it was so simple. I was like, ta-da, you know, I'm also still learning. And it was, he just talked about how does it look like? And since that moment that he said that, it's like, of course, you know, every behavior that we talk about, we should talk about how does that look like? Otherwise, we can't communicate with one another. That makes complete sense. So if I say to somebody that animal is aggressive, I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're trying to say, because aggression is 1,000 different behaviors, if not more. So I have no idea how that looks like if we never talked about the behaviors they show us and how that behavior looks like when they are aggressive. What is their aggressive behavior? That's what we have to ask ourselves as an example. Anyway, so the strongest individual is reinforced for allowing the weaker to participate. I'm going to show you this video, and you see actually me reinforcing the choice of one of the Alpine Ibexes, okay? Because I believe cooperative feeding is a lot about the animals making a specific choice, and that choice is very small, but I'm reinforcing that choice. So I'm not distracting it so I have the behavior. No, I'm paying so much attention that if the animal chooses me instead, I reinforce more. And that's how I teach them, see, if you just share and then you choose me, you get more, but you have to share first. And that's essentially what I'm teaching them. That was pretty quick. But what you see, you know what, I will play it again after this. So what you would see is that the Ibex on the left side, it's the weaker one. The Ibex in front of me, it's the stronger one. So the other research lady, she's reinforcing that one. Okay, she's throwing the reinforcer. The Ibex is a little bit afraid, but it's okay. It comes back. I then throw a big handful to that individual as well. Now, the other big Ibex, he has a choice. He can either go to that food source too, because it's maybe more as what he has right now. He can either say, this area is my source, that's mine. So because that's where all the perfect best reinforcer comes from, so you better get out. That's not a choice. Or it chooses, if I did the right thing, to stay. So what you see the Ibex doing is we reinforce that one. He looks up, he looks at the other one, and he decides, I'm walking back into that box. And that's the moment that we're going to say, here you have loads. I'm going to play it again. There you go. So now you could see it a little bit better. Now I have another video for you. Nope. All right. So cooperative feeding, every time the every time the weaker animal is reinforced, so does the strongest animal. This can't be skipped. You can't just reinforce the weaker one, because you have to put in the back of your head continuously, we are teaching the stronger ones to share with the weaker ones. So if you reinforce the weaker one and not the stronger one, you're not reinforcing that sharing. Okay, you hope that they'll accept, but hoping is a 50-50 chance. If it's wrong, you're way further from home. It takes you another couple of weeks to fix it again. So therefore, you can't skip to reinforce the strongest one right after you did the weaker one, and preferably more. Now, this is the challenge, because it's close observation and precise timing of reinforcement will result in the likelihood of future participation. Let me just show you another video. This is of the European bisons. Now, the whole story about the European bisons was that there's a big exhibit in the back where we are standing. Yeah, we're standing in front of the gate of a bigger exhibit in the back, but where we are standing is also the exhibit. So we teach them to come to us because we wanted to shift them a lot faster. Okay, so we would ask them to come to us, we would get out, we would open the gate and call them again. So they would actually shift in no time instead of after a little bit. But to do so, we had to teach the big male to accept everybody to come so we can make the group shift faster. Now, that was the first steps we took. And this is kind of how that looked like, okay? All right, so as you could see, I made some mistakes. That's the reason I put it in there, because I was actually reinforcing him, chasing the other one away. The thing is with animals, and it's the same with people, it can just be a look. It only has to be this. And boom, the other animals running away. So what you could have seen in the video is that I was, you know, we reinforced the one in the back, the younger, I think was a younger female. Bork, the big male, does this. Looks. And then I'm like, what many people would do is ask him to look back at me. Ask him, come on, I have food here. Come on, you accept it. That's a good, that can be a good step, but you're distracting the animal. What you want to do is wait just a little longer till the animal decided, I'm not going after you. I'm going to focus on you. When that happens, you just make a party. It's your party. Thank you so much for accepting that the other one there is now allowed to eat as well. And that one all of a sudden becomes more confident. And this one, Bork in this case, the big male, he's becoming more acceptive of other ones because he understands as well, there's more in it if I accept this one than when I don't. That's the whole idea. So and all of a sudden, the animal makes the choice, well, this is for me better than going after this one. And that's what we say, yes, we empower that. That's what we want you to do. We want you to accept that one and choose for me and not for chasing the other one. And that's the important one. Now, I want to point out with cooperative care, with any animals, this can change all the time. So I worked with, or I helped out 2 otters. And those two otters are also in Norway. We introduced the two together, two little males, and it goes back and forth. Sometimes you see that one male, Victor, going after Sven, and sometimes you see Sven going after Victor. So at the start, I'll try to do cooperative feeding with, okay, Sven, you get a little bit, and then Victor, you get a lot. But maybe 1 minute later, I need to do the opposite. And that keeps on going. I just have to pay attention all the time. And it goes super fast. And therefore, I want to point out, and I want to stress this very much, close observation and precise timing of reinforcement will result in the likelihood of future participation if you do it right. Now, sometimes with apes, it's pretty rough, because they're very intelligent. So it's pretty rough. Marine mammals too, dolphins, especially killer whales. I remember working with the killer whales in France, and then the habitat was about 75 meters long, and we had the strongest in one corner, the weakest in the other. And even though they were so far apart, when we would reinforce the weaker one last of this session, and even though it was so far apart, and we would stop the session, the stronger one would directly go after and say, hey, that's not right, or whatever she said. I can't speak Orca, but whatever and there would be directly a big fight. So we had to pay attention all the time, regardless if they're at the far other side of the exhibit, regardless if they're facing back to back. You trainers communicate with one another. We're going to end. Yes, I'm doing the last thing. So that's done for you. Otherwise, you have a conflict again. Therefore, it is so important to observe the precise timing and to pay attention to one another in that training session itself. But cooperative feeding is the first thing I'm doing. I have a group of animals. Actually, I think we're going to go now to a very interesting story. Yes, the fallow deers. So with the fallow deers, one of the first things that we did was look at which animals that were already okay to get reinforced from our hand, because if we can reinforce animals from our hand, we have full control over the behavior that we are going to reinforce. Because, and I believe it or not, I learned this from Ken Ramirez, and I knew this already. It was just like, Peter, wake up. This is how it works. It's like, oh yeah, of course. And the only thing he said was, we can't reinforce animals. And I was like, oh, what? And he was like, no, we can only reinforce the behavior the animals are doing. It's like, aha, of course, because reinforcement only functions when you reinforce a behavior, because then the behavior will increase. Whoops. The animals will not increase. That's the thing. An animal will not increase. The behavior the animal does increases. So that's what we were continuously thinking about. So if I am able to reinforce the fallow deers from my hand, I have more control over the fallow deers, and I can actually implement cooperative feeding a lot better. So the story goes like this. 35 fallow deers we had on a 6-acre exhibit, pretty big. They share the exhibit with, back then, 12 European moose. And the European moose, we didn't want to have come close to us. For the people never working with European moose, but if they fight, they kick with their front legs. Well, you don't want to be in front of that animal if that happens. So, but we had 35, and we discovered that due to the food intake, that there was too much protein in the food, which was good for the moose, but the fallow deers would eat that as well, and their hoof started to grow very fast. So we had to think about something. Then we said, you know what, let's train them to hoof trim. 35 animals, hoof trimming. So, and the only animal that actually came to us was Hedda. Now, Hedda was a young female, and it was raised by zookeepers, and it was successfully introduced again into the group of fallow deers, which was fantastic for us because it gave us a head start. So we started with Hedda. The best part of flock animals, such as fallow deers, they follow each other continuously. So you had these smaller groups as well, but sometimes a very big group, and they would follow one another all the time. So if Hedda would come, a couple others would come. So we would reinforce Hedda and just toss some reinforcement to the other ones. Reinforce Hedda, toss some reinforcement to the other ones, and reinforce Hedda again. So slowly, more and more animals came interested in us. We also then discovered that the big male, a young male with the big antlers, started to push the other ones away. So all of a sudden, we had the issue that the big male was actually the reason why the other ones wouldn't come closer as what they could do. So we decided, you know what? We come with two trainers. One trainer focuses on all the animals that would get reinforced from hand. So at one point we were at 5 animals or something. The other person focuses on that one male and the rest in the back. So over time, we got to 12 animals from our hand and so on. And then we decided, okay, that's fantastic. But have we thought about how we're going to do that hoof trimming? So had I made the other ones curious, that was the best part because it was a flock of animals, all right? But they wouldn't come that close. They're still flight animals. So reinforce everybody that comes towards us. That was our whole plan. So we had this 90-degree angle. It's very hard to see now, but a 90-degree angle. So if one animal would come all the way from there and would walk into my 90-degree angle, I would reinforce it every step forward. And the same thing for the other animals that way. So we had this area you couldn't really, it's imaginary area. But everything that comes towards us, we reinforce it. At the same time, because the animals were very much like this with us, well, we don't want to come close because they don't seem very nice for whatever reason. You know what? We said, you know what? We have this area, we reinforce you, but then we would back up as well. Because if we would back up, the animals feel more comfortable with eating again. But then afterwards, they would come closer again. So I can reinforce coming closer to me again. And that kept on going. All right. So every step moved towards a 90-degree angle. That was one of the big steps that we took. Reinforce for success on the next step. So we backed up, which means that they could now comfortably and willing to eat themselves, to then be courageous enough to walk towards us again, which directly gave us success for our next steps. So any movement with their body, with their head or their hoofs, anything towards us would get reinforced. So animal A goes here and animal B goes there. We had 2 trainers and that's how we kind of divided them. That separating or dividing them, we've done it with this because those fallow deers we couldn't separate. There was just one big field and that was it. You had 2 trainers and those 2 trainers, that's all we had. So we came with the idea, why don't we make boxes from spare wood that we had? Because that allowed us to not have to train them to stay. Because teaching them to stay at one position is actually a lot harder than when you have a fixed position, such as either a station or one of those boxes. So all we had to do is ask one to come in, reinforce, and the other one touching. And the fallow deers could go under at any time. They could walk away at any time, but they have to walk back in to then get to do it again. So what would happen is one would be done, we would lead the other one to go in, one would be done, lead the other one to go in, and then the second trainer would actually lift the hoofs and cut the hoofs. So that's kind of how that would look like. Eventually, on the left side, that's a new type of box. We made it from like these pallets, and you can flip them in, so easy to take with us, because those ones that you see in the big picture, the moose destroyed them. We didn't bring them back. We come back the day after and it was just gone. It was flat, it was destroyed. So it's like, okay, so that didn't work. So then somebody came with that specific idea, what you see on the left side. The outcome was this. Eventually, we didn't have to do the hoofs because the trainers, instead of us coming into the habitat, that the animals would run away, because a lot of times the veterinarian would come with us and he would then dart an animal. So the animal was like, okay, that car, due to classical conditioning, means we have to get out. Now we came in and they came running towards us. We started to put it on a signal so we could ask it anywhere, every time of day. All of a sudden, we had animals running from all over the place. That running on different surfaces. So you had the gravel road, you had the rocky areas, you had the grass. Solved the problem. So we didn't have to go into this anymore, as a side note. So problem solved with the hoofs. But this allowed us to separate them individually, and it worked very, very well. So that's how we went from a big group to an individual itself, which was fantastic to watch. So then we eventually the veterinarian told me, I've never seen them this close. It's like, well, there you go. So that was an extra add-on. They normally need binoculars, and now they were there. So the lady watching this male, that's the veterinarian. And now they could just come in and look at them properly. which was a huge plus for the vet as well, just looking at them. Then we had 21 chimpanzees, and I find this, to be honest, the proudest thing to talk about, because there were 21, and that's a lot. We had about, back then, 4 to 5 keepers, but only 3 working. They had to take care of the 21 chimpanzees, 4 white-hand gibbons, and 4 gorillas, which is also quite some work for the people that work with gorillas. But focusing on the 21 chimpanzees, you have 21, you have 3 trainers a day, sometimes even 2. And the question now is, we want to raise all the welfare of each individual in this group. Of course, the keepers come to me and say, first of all, how we're going to do this. Second of all, where do we take the time from? Because it's not there. We also have other things to do. I was like, all right, okay, no problem. Let's think about something, which we did. So we wanted to go to a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, the small goals that we thought about was, you know what, we have to find a reinforcement system. So you can see that at the fencing, the little pipes. The cool thing of those things was we would just fill them up with fruits and whatever, which gave that variety of that reinforcer directly, because they didn't know what was in these pipes. They had to figure it out to find out, is there something that I really enjoy in these pipes? And there were like more than 20 of those things, up top, down, through the other fencing part. There were so many. So everybody had a chance to do this. We trained them a call over, and we trained them a quick delivery of reinforcement, because we wanted to reinforce them within 3 seconds. Now, I don't know if you know the LRS story. Very long story short, the 3 seconds is because in that 3 seconds, you still have a chance to connect the reinforcer to what has happened 3 seconds ago. That's kind of the simple thing. So you want to quickly reinforce so you don't reinforce something else. So that was the whole idea. Now, the trainer goals was you have to know who is who. Well, you think that's pretty obvious. I know. But if you have 21 chimpanzees, it can be rough. So one trainer was better at that than another. But know who's who. Present smaller groups was an idea all of a sudden from others. Like, okay, why don't we present the smaller groups? Instead of 21, we try to get to 5. Question is how, which I come back to. Then we're going to color code these smaller groups for communication. So we didn't have to talk about this, and this chimpanzee. No, we just said group blue, and everybody would know what group blue was. So we had a communication strategy within the trainers as well. Going from there, the behaviors that we needed was a call over, we needed group separation, we needed name recognition, we needed selection, and a calm reintroduction. Now, for the people that work with chimpanzees or gorillas, separating them is one thing, but introducing them back is another. You can't just open the gates and then hope for the best. No, you have to give them a very successful environment afterwards. So your antecedent arrangement doesn't start from before you separate them. Afterwards, you have to put antecedent arrangement in again to have the successful reintroduction. That's the thing with the chimpanzees. So we started to use a general routine to be able to get our first call over. Now, they had this general routine, and we just added a signal. We added this reinforcer. So we went from 45 minutes very quickly to 2 minutes shifting, which gave us a lot of time back. Side story. We built the groups and reinforced accordingly. So we started to find out who seemed to prefer to be with who. We had Claudius, the male, and the big male, and he would be with the older females. All right, then that's group blue. That's where you want to be. That's okay. The male that seemed to challenge that other male was next to him in group green. You're there with the animals that want to be there with you, and so on. And then we had group red beside this, and group red was they were the easiest ones. They were always good. It was so fun to work with those. They didn't really have those challenges as I don't want to be with that one, or I don't want to do this, and so on. Then you had a group white and a group yellow, as far as I remember. But this is, for example, how that recall would look like. So we did an emergency recall, we had a call over, and we had a separation signal. This is the emergency recall. So there was an emergency recall. Now what we've done, I think I have it. Oops, I think I have it right here. So this is what that separation signal then looked like, okay? So we would give, I remember it was, I think it was a very long signal that we used with the whistle, I think, which was to separate yourself. And this is what then happened. So all these chimpanzees above there, they're in the main exhibit. We would give that signal and then they did this. Stop. And then after, because we conditioned it so strong, the keepers now could close first the gates to the main exhibit. Then they could walk around and then close all the gates in between before they would reinforce this specific behavior. So sometimes the animals would wait a little longer, but due to the routine and that system, they also started to seem to understand that, hey, I need to do all of this to then get my reinforcement for what I just done, which was fantastic to watch. So this is the outcome of such a thing. And what happened afterwards was, you know, you had a smaller group. Now, this was the important one because we discovered that if the two males, that's with the circles around it, if they are at the right position, then we have 99% of success with this separation thing. If those two, if one of them is not there, guarantee we will not have the success that we thought we would have. So therefore, when they would come in, they would be directly reinforced. There you go. Thank you for coming. Then we would wait, and then we would directly apply the full reinforcement challenge strategy, not the challenge. And then we had a lot of success afterwards. When we had that set, we had it like this. All right, so you have 5 or 4 animals now, one trainer with 3, one trainer with 1, and now we can train. And that's how we would swap those animals once in a while. All of a sudden, you can do with 2 trainers 4 animals instead of 21 2 trainers. So if we talk about the criteria, and that's when I talk about how does the behavior look like. Now, those are the things that we train the chimpanzees as a foundation at first. So we had a call over, which meant come to wherever the trainer is within 10 seconds after the signal has been given. So it means come to the trainer. So wherever the trainer is, which can be outside, inside, in the box area. Important thing is accept one another. So everybody has to come, not just one. Everybody should accept one another and come to the designated signal to where the trainer is. That's the call over. Then we had the recall, which meant whatever is happening in your environment, come to the backstage area. So whatever is going on, come there, and then you get a party because you ignored everything that's happening in your exhibit. Then we had the separation. The criteria of this was separate yourself in the designated subgroups and accept one another. I should have put in there, wait till the gates are closed and yeah, be calm in that sense. That was the criteria of the separation. And all 3 had a different signal. Then we had the selection, and that was go to the second trainer. So I say to one animal, you go to the second trainer. The rest that is not sent has to stay with me. And then they have to accept one another so that cooperative feeding keeps on happening all the time. And then I'll get an animal back and then I say, hey, now you go there. And then all of a sudden I have a pretty quick training session of not so many animals out of the 21. And I can go through those groups if I like. Another story, Alpine Ibex. Now I was asked, I think this was 2017 or something, to train Alpine Ibex. And I've never trained these Alpine Ibex. And they were with quite a lot. They were also a 35, very big exhibit. They believe it or not, shared the exhibit with African ostriches. So we had to be careful a little bit. So we trained all the ostriches to come to the backstage area first so we could safely train the Alpine Ibex. So we had a plus. Now we had to train them. The goal was to train them for a collar. And the collar had to have a GPS and this whole system to figure out what their moving ranges are, how do they move, and eventually see how that would work with wild Alpine Ibex. Side story. The whole question for us was, we have 35. Those Ibex had never been trained before. Those horns, I don't want to get them to come close to me. It's basically like, you know, a dolphin knows where its tail is. So if it passes by and it touches you, it understands that it did that. The Alpine Ibex has a sim. He just does this. He does to you. So if he disagrees or whatever, is this bonk. It's like, okay, so I guess he knows exactly what's going on with these horns and where they are. So the key points here was safety, period. Safety for the trainers. Focus on reinforcement. That was another one. The goal was only focus on reinforcement. There's no separation facility, and they've never been trained before. So then the question is, how are we going to do this? That was the question. So our first build was up in the top corner. We put pallets there, just 3. They were laying around there. I asked them, can we have those? And we built these little boxes, separation areas, semi-protective contact, they call this. So at least they were separated from one another. Now, we added the feeding containers because we wanted to have them to step up so we could reach them. But if they stepped up, the thing was they were very, very close with these horns. So the one of the trainers came with this fantastic idea of having these triangles. And these triangles were solely for safety, because if they would do this, they would hit these triangles and they would not hit the trainer, which was for us very, very good. We put some rules in place, and that was very, very important, because the whole process, anything, how we did it was by applying these criteria, these rules. So first of all, accept one another, stay calm. Then we train them the guideline of these boxes. You choose a box, then you stay in this box. So you're not moving around anymore. So whichever box you decide to take, that's the box you stay into. That was important for us because we didn't want to have Alpine Ibex running from box to box all the time. We were like, you stay in one box, then you stay there, because that also took away the conflicts they could have between one another. Now, the good thing was we only needed the males at this point in time. So the females were reinforced, then the males were reinforced more in these boxes for allowing the females also to come close, because maybe in the future we wanted to train them again. So we had these 3 changed boxes for these 3 males. So we decided to choose a box and step up and stay. Now, the step up, you can see this as a station. You step up, you get reinforced. You don't step up, you don't get reinforced. It was pretty simple. And then we train them for the collar training. So we had to teach them to touch and that something is around your neck. Reinforcement now a lot.
It's safer to be there instead of.
Yeah, she does choose to be there, doesn't she?
Touch, stop. Go away, go away, go away. Feed more, feed more. Good. And you might want to stop there. Good. Feed no more. Take the thing away. Good. Okay. We'll just cover this a little bit. Okay. That's why I want you to be ready. So that's eventually how it looked like. All right. So you had 3 boxes, 3 of them. Now we could separate them. So all of a sudden we got control over a big group to just individual animals. And they would stay and wait for us at one point. So we would do one, and then we could walk to the other one. And then we could walk back to this one. And from there, we could teach them more things if we wanted. Now, for us, it was the collar training, what was the most important one. But you could extend this to everybody into a box if you like, which was an option as well. So that's how we solved the group challenge with these Alpine Ibex, to figure out how we could separate them and work safely with them. Which brings me to the ostriches. Now, I clicked very quickly, but I'll show this to you again. The ostriches shared the exhibit with the Alpine Ibex. To train the Alpine Ibex, we had to teach them a call over. And that call over was a little bell that meant come to us. And eventually we actually connected this bell to where you have to go. So the bell meant go backstage area, and these ostriches would run from one exhibit to the other. So I thought it was pretty scary. So you had to back up because it would just come, I won't say flying in, but good luck, ostrich. They would run so fast past us, like, oh my gosh, what's going? Beautiful to watch. So they would be gone. But then the question came in, like, look, we have these little chicks. Fantastic. We have these adults, but these chicks have to be checked. They have to be chipped. They have to be numbered. They have to, you know, for this whole zoo system where they need to have the names and all that stuff. The question was, how are we going to do this? Before, they would run after these chicks. So then I was like, okay, yeah, but now we have quite some individuals. What are we going to do? So then we decided to build this apparatus. Now, that's kind of what you see in the bottom here. I draw it a little bit. These lines is the apparatus, and we could flip it open from every angle, so it looked like this. So we all of a sudden were safe behind those things, because if they would kick against the wood. The wood would break and not my ankles and my legs. So this would help us. And then we directly had a black and white system. The adults on the left, the babies on the right. Now I'm going to go, there you go. So this is what it looked like. So we would actually set that thing up, which was also the signal of come and go. And this is how that looked like. Pop. That's how it went. And let me show you the video. That's how that looked like, that system. All right. Let me show you more. Oh. So the ostriches, one detrimental approximation to make them understand a difference in steps. So we had that first approximation in the bottom, like you see. We put that in the backstage area, which was this. That was the backstage. So they went through this door already, and this is how it looked like. The big blue thing there in the bottom, that was inside. So there would be one trainer inside. That on top, that little beautiful red star, that's another trainer, and with that apparatus in there. But now the apparatus didn't have this thing sticking out anymore. Now it meant the apparatus means adults, inside means youngsters. The first approximation looked like this. The end goal looked like what you see on the right. Okay, so we just had to have one signal, which meant trainers in place, and the animals would come in, and the adults would run to this wooden thing. The babies would run inside, and all of a sudden, I made this group into smaller ones. I could close the gates. I could now either say, babies inside, we will come back to you with multiple trainers so we can focus on, which was the transportation at the end. We trained them to have a sock over their head. Actually, the trainers did a fantastic job, but that was only possible because we could do this. Or the trainers would go outside and first train the big adults. So, and that's how all of a sudden we have extra trainers left over. We had smaller groups of animals, and all of a sudden we can go to a 1-to-1 ratio and reach that transportation goal, which was the goal at the end. Things that ended up taking so long without these strategies now became piece of cake. Trainers all of a sudden were like, wow, this is just fantastic. Let's keep this up. Now let me show you how this kind of looked like with the ostriches in the video.
Hej, bra. Kom, du är välkommen här.
Females are big now.
Ja, varsågod, du är välkommen här. Bra. Varsågod. Nu kommer sista då, Hef. Nu kommer han. Hon.
There you go. So that's how we separate them now. Within 2 minutes, we get them to go from place to place, and they start to understand this extremely well. So those are just a couple ideas how we solved group challenges, how we solved the group problem. But I want to really stress the cooperative feeding part, because that one makes the difference in the world. That one is what solves the whole, I'm chasing you issue. You have to teach them to share. If they understand I need to share and I'll get more, then there's calmness in your group. If there's calmness in your group, there's more focus towards you teaching them a task to do. This is separation, or the chimpanzees separating the way they did, and so on, because that's what you want. You don't want to have animals who are sitting in front of you like this, because there's no focus to you. There's nothing. So for you now to give a signal, it's almost impossible. You can't even train. Yes, the animal is there, but the animal is not focused on you. It's too busy with its environment. But if you apply cooperative feeding, even the weaker ones will get more confident and comfortable, because that chasing for that resource is not happening from that stronger animal. So timing that reinforcement gives the confidence to the weaker ones, makes the stronger ones share the source, and you have more focus in your group, more calmness in your group, and your progression will go up a lot faster. So therefore, I will always focus first on that part. Oops. Oh, there you go. So that was it. Thank you very much. I did it pretty quickly. Now, if there are any questions, I think we're going to go soon into the Q&A area as well. But before we do, I want to show you this. Now, the 13th till the 17th of December, we're having a cooperative care conference, and we have it with all these beautiful speakers. And we're talking about just one topic, and that's cooperative care. But we're going to talk about this, about horses, zoo animals. A lot of cool zoo stuff is in there, but also dogs and also cats. We even have somebody with cows who's training them to be vaccinated and everything, all with reinforcement strategies. So if you want to join, just go to zoospencer.com, Cooperative Care Conference 2021, and sign yourself up. If you want to know what everybody's talking about, go to the same website, and then you can see everybody's bios, and you can see their abstract with what they will be talking about. So if you do not know yet, check it out first, and then sign up. So that was it. A very quick rundown about solving the group challenge. So I hope that you guys are inspired, got some creative ideas. If not, call me.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you so much. That was awesome. And because I think we've had such a great group today, I've actually put the link to the Q&A into the chat now. So if you guys do want to all join, because we didn't have a chance now to do any Q&As, we're going to run straight into that. If anyone wants to join, just click on that link now, and that will take you to the Q&A, which we're going to run like a Zoom meeting. So everyone, if you would like, you can have your screens on. We'll give everyone a few minutes to get in there. And so if you have any questions, jump into that now, and we can have our questions there. And just to finish up, Peter, that was awesome. And just so everyone can appreciate some Swedish techno music. I don't know if you recognize this. Sorry, guys, that was something Peter like. He nearly started dancing. Thank you so much, Peter. That was an awesome chat. I look forward to all the questions we're about to see now. Everyone jump into that link now if you want to be there for the live Q&A. Thank you so much.